New York, big city of dreams.
What's going on? This is Jay Ellis from Knick Of Time Show. Here to give you that Knicks talk just in the nick of time. I'm here with my guys, B. Escobedo and Ryan G. And we're here to talk about some recent Knicks news or just trade rumors that we just want to discuss. So we're going to get into that really quick and discuss it. So here we go. And the first thing I actually want to talk about is Zach Lavine. All right. So Zach Lavine. Listen, we've talked about Zach Lavine here on this program. Ryan G, me and you, we talk about Zach Lavine pretty much every time he's been available. We've been called crazy every time we talked about it, even coming up around halftime during the season, around December, we talked about it, and some people kind of mad at us for bringing it up. But it seems like Knick Nation is on board right now. So we're going to talk more about Zach Lavine and what we saw and what everybody else is starting to see. Why Zach Lavine would make sense to us. So let's get to it. Well, I kind of already spilled the beans, but I'm assuming you guys still feel that way. So, well, Lee, what do you think? Are you still on board with Zach Lavine to the Knicks? We'll start there.
Lavine's my number one trade target. He's a number one guy, but I hope the Knicks go after in terms of realistic players. Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, those guys are not realistic. So when I'm trying to stay sane and not get myself into the pits of Knicks Twitter hell, Zach Lavine is a name that I like the most for a myriad of reasons. I'll start with the most important. One, he's entering his prime. So even though he's one of those players like Beal, who's making around $50 million a year, you're not getting someone on the wrong side of 30. You're getting someone on the right side of 30. At 28 years old, he fits a timeline of Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson. And I also like the fact that this is not Zach Lavine come into the Phil Jackson era or the Steve Mills era where we need Zach Lavine to be mellow. Zach Lavine to come to the Knicks and be a very solid number two option, sliding Julius Randle to the third option, which I think will make a lot of Knicks fans happy and everyone in the organization happy as well, and probably Randle happy too. And Jalen Brunson is our superstar. He's our first option. He's our number one on-ball guy. And Zach Lavine can come in and be an unbelievable Robin the same way that Paul George is over there in LA Clippers with Kawhi Leonard. I think it's a really great fit because he's a marksman from three. I think he shot around 38% from three. He's for his entire career, he's been a marksman from downtown. Add that with his elite athleticism at 28 years old, and that fills a lot of needs for us. My hope is that we're able to keep Quentin Grimes in any deal, so we have two knockdown shooters from a three-point line, and Zach Lavine gives you some athleticism that we really haven't had since Latrell Sprewell back at the late 90s team. He's a guy who can just dunk on you and give facials to just about every single player in the NBA. He's unstoppable getting going downhill. And the tandem of him, Grimes, and Brunson is mouthwatering, bro. Like I hope that Leon Rose has the right cachet and the right estimation of the value of the players that he can put forth in a trade to where we don't get fleeced and we're the ones doing the fleecing. I believe after this playoff run, RJ Barrett's stock has risen, as well as any other bench piece that we end up including at a higher ratio than it was at the trade deadline when some of our pieces is more unknown. Like, what is RJ Barrett? Will his shooting efficiency hold up? I think this playoff series showed that RJ Barrett can be a centerpiece in any trade for Zach Lavine moving forward. Love the deal.
Yeah, man. You already seen the numbers, man. I explain this a lot of times on Cleaning the Glass. Look at the numbers. The numbers in orange mean above average. Mean average or above, man. It's all orange for us here, man. At the rim, 73rd percentile, from 57th percentile, which is actually low for him. But you have to consider he was coming off of an injury at the beginning of last summer and worked his way into the season and ended up still a little bit above average from three when towards the end of the season. I actually feel like this is going to be might even be a better season for Zach moving forward, just because, listen, man, you get better in the offseason, and he's been spending his off seasons rehabbing. This season he won't be rehabbing, so I expect that 3-point number to even go up next year for Zach Lavine. And you just look at the matchups and look what we have to deal with. The Knicks have been in the bottom of the league in 3-point shooting for the entire season and still been top 10 offense. You swap out a guy in our starting lineup for a guy who can hit threes, hit pull-up threes, make plays for other people. and finish at the rim as well, and take some pressure off of Brunson not to have to do everything himself. It can propel us to the next level. So a talent like Zach, I think, would have made it got us past the Heat for real. I think Zach Lavine is absolutely the best move, and I also feel like the injury thing has been overblown for years, man. It's really been overblown. I understand the hesitancy because he's had surgeries, but when you look at the amount of games he's actually played, he's actually been over 60 games for a lot of seasons. He's played more games than people realize, and so the injury thing has really been overblown, and he's been productive in playing decent amount of games. First season, 77 games, 82 games. He had a stretch in 2016, 2017, when he played 47 and 24. But you know what? He's been at 77 games last season, 67 the season before, and then flirting with 60 the 2 seasons before that. So even with the injuries, it's not as bad as people really advertise it, because that's the thing that people really harp on when they say, they don't want Zach here. So I think you guys have to really take a look at, this can be a move for us. And even the Tom Thibodeau connection with Zach, I always thought Zach and Tom had an issue, but Zach speaks glowingly of Tom, from when he played with the Timberwolves and now. So I think a reunion with a Zach Lavine 2.0 is overdue. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think both you and Lee, pretty much said everything that it needs to be said about Zach Lavine. So basically, I think one of the first things you have to look at is, does this player fit the timeline of the current stars on the team? You look at Jalen Brunson's age, he's like 25, 26. Julius Randle's 28, 29. Zach Levine's about to be, I think he's 28 this year. So therefore, you look at the ages, you're like, the ages match up. So he fits a timeline of the current stars on the team. That's number one. Number two, you have to look at health. Like Jay Ellis said, he's been fairly healthy these past few seasons, and last season being a positive sign that where he played 77 games. So that's an extremely positive sign that he's probably past his injuries at this point in his career, and he's going to be fairly healthy if you acquire him. Number three, is he a player that can shoot the ball and provide spacing? Mm-hmm. Yes, he's like a career like 37, 38% three-point shooter. That's above average by NBA standards. He gives you 24 to 25 points a game based on last year's stats, and overall he shoots 48% from the field based on last season as well, career 47% shooter from the field. So the fact that he added in with the athleticism and the fact that he's a dynamic player where he can drop 30 to 40 any given night. You put that next to Jalen Brunson, and you push Julius Randle to the third option, where I know there's Knicks fans out there saying that the Knicks should include Julius Randle in a deal for Zach Lavine, Zach Lavine, but if we're being realistic here, the Knicks probably see Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle as key pieces, and they're probably not going to get rid of either player.
Yep.
So the key here is to add another player to the mix. That's going to probably push Julius Randle to that third option, because if you heard Julius Randle on the PG podcast, he was glad not to be the first option when Jalen Brunson came. Mm-hmm. And actually have somebody else here with him to help him out, to take some of the pressure off of him. So I believe with Zach Lavine coming in, that's going to be another player that's going to take the pressure off him again. And I think that's going to put Julius Randle in a more comfortable role, to where it's going to open up the floor for him as well. Like as Lee said, if the Knicks can keep Quentin Grimes and have two shooters out there along with Jalen Brunson, that's going to definitely open up the floor for Julius Randle as well. And I think that's going to help out his game also, and help him to be a bit more efficient. So Zach Lavine seems like the perfect piece for me, and I would be 100% on board with acquiring him if I was the Knicks.
I got a question for y'all. Sure. If we got Zach Lavine, do you think we're a championship contender?
It's hard to say. I would say we're closer. The same answer I kind of had before. I think we're a lot closer for sure. I think we'll be knocking on the door for sure. Just having that spacing, and I think we still need to see some more steps for the young guys. I still feel like Grimes, hopefully, won't be included in the deal because those guys are going to want picks and young guys. And it could be Obi, it could be IQ, it could be Grimes, or maybe it could just be more picks if you want to keep those guys, depending on how the front office sees it. But I still feel like our young guys are still going to have to step up. But I think I think we get a lot better if with Zach here. Like, I still remember there was a stint where we were top 3 or top 4 offense, and that's when we were hitting our threes. And if you have Zach Lavine in the lineup hitting threes, and Grimes takes that next step, all of a sudden the floor opens up a lot more than what's seen all last season. So I think we're definitely knocking on the door.
What about you, Ryan?
I think, in my opinion, it's going to take some time. Like, if Knicks fans expect them to acquire Zach Lavine and become championship contenders overnight, I think they're being unrealistic because, like JL said, I was going to say it too. The young players on the squad have to develop a bit more for them to reach that championship level because, again, like the past playoff series, and I've even preached it in past podcasts, even made a video about it. The young players on the team barely have any playoff experience. You have to put them through the fire over and over and over again for them to improve their performances in the playoffs. If you're expecting these young guys to just go into the playoffs their first or second time and expect them to perform crazy, it's unrealistic. A lot of these players in the NBA, they always preach experience, experience, experience. You have to bring these young guys through the fire over and over and over again and let them build up the experience so that in the future they can perform up to their level in the playoffs and exceed their level in the regular season. So you get Zach Lavine, and that's why I say you need a superstar within that window of the current 2 stars on this team, which is Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, because it's not going to be an overnight process. It's going to take 3-4 years probably for them to mesh and for these other guys on the team to develop and become their best selves, so that when the team meshes and they have that experience playing together, they become more and more formidable down the line. So it's not going to be overnight. It's gonna be a process, and Knicks fans are going to have to be patient for it to all come together.
I'm going to be a little more bullish than y'all. I think Lavine makes us a championship contender if we're able to keep Grimes. I think even if we gave up IQ, Obi, and RJ, Mitch and Randall stay. Obviously, Brunson stays. Hart and Hartenstein stay. I think that adding 1 or 2 pieces in free agency, I think that's enough for us to be a contender. I agree with you that we would have to be patient to win a championship. I think we could make a Miami Heat finals run next season with Lavine, but it would probably take 1 or 2 seasons for the team to fully gel. But Jalen Brunson's ascension makes anything possible. Him blowing up this season, I think the sky's the limit for him, and he could even take another step next season and become a really truly elite point guard in the NBA. Him, Lavine, and Randall, man, that's as good as any combination of players Miami had, and they got to the finals in the East. So I'm not going to go as far as say they would win it, but damn, I think they would be a contender if they added Lavine.
Yeah, I would think we were knocking at the door. And like I said, it's the young guys for me, right? I feel like Grimes is a big piece. But also what I saw was, what's going to happen with IQ's future. And if he's moved, what firepower do we have off the bench? Because hopefully, we do end up signing IQ. But I think that's a huge part of why we were successful last season. When Brunson was down, IQ was able to keep things afloat. Or, when the starters go down in general, when the stars are out in general, we have some guys off the bench with some firepower who can carry that torch. So, depending on how this all season goes, if we end up keeping IQ and Zach, and if Zach is here, and Grimes takes that step, then I think it becomes much more palatable that we can get it there. But it's going to take some development from our guys, including the Knicks with the extra firepower. Question for you guys too, because I think we're talking about Zach. In our minds, like RJ would be the piece to go.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of been reported that the Bulls are looking. Let me pull that report. It says Chicago's looking for multiple first-round picks and a young player, and or a first-round pick and a high-end player. So if RJ is included, it might be less picks. If RJ is not included, it will be more picks. Pretty much is what I gather from that. Is there a place in your mind? I'm just throwing this out there where we keep RJ and Zach Lavine as a shooting guard.
I mean,
Go ahead, Ryan.
honestly, I can't see it because I think the way you have to look at it is, okay, so the money has to match, right? So Zach Levine's earning about 50 million a year, right? Roughly that number. So you're gonna have to throw somebody in there who's earning significant salary. And if they're saying that they need a top tier player or young players and picks to actually get off of Zach Levine's contract, you have to think of the players on the squad who are the quote unquote top tier players. They're not gonna trade Jalen Brunson, who's on significant salary. They're probably not gonna trade Julius Randle, who's on significant salary. So who's the other players beside those that actually have value, who's on significant salary? It's
Right.
RJ. So RJ's gonna more than likely be the guy, the odd man out. And then they're gonna, of course, attach more salary onto RJ to make the money work, and probably throw in maybe an unprotected first round pick. And probably that's going to be the deal. Maybe they throw in an extra protected pick, to sweeten the deal a bit, maybe. And yeah, but I mean, RJ's more than likely the odd man out.
I agree. I think Ryan made the best point, which is matching the salaries. It would be really hard to match salaries when it's IQ, even with extensions, IQ, Obi, Grimes, and maybe a combination of Fournier and Rose. It would just be too difficult to match that $50 million without RJ Barrett's 27, 28 rookie extension helping to aid in that. And also you would have four guys that work best on ball. And I think Leon Rose is aware of, having three lefties and their positioning, all three guys having very similar sweet spots on the floor. Not that the left hand is the most indicative of why it doesn't work, but all three guys really benefit the most from the same spots on the floor. And RJ's shot is not consistent from three enough to really allow for spacing. I think it would benefit the Knicks just fluidity wise to have someone who doesn't have to be on ball or have plays ran for them in Quentin Grimes, who can remain a catch and shoot shooter from the perimeter. That to me benefits the team's unity on the court and the cohesiveness, opposed to RJ Barrett, who really needs the ball in his hands and trying to downhill and draw fouls as much as possible. So I don't see a scenario where RJ stays, and I think that it would behoove the Knicks to move RJ in a deal for Lavine just because of a usage rate and on-ball necessity.
Yeah, the usage rate might be something to look at. Ian Begley actually wrote an article. He kind of talked about it. He said Lavine will make $40 million next year. The Knicks would need to send out at least $32 million to satisfy the league trade rules. It's funny, the new CBA is coming, right? So the new CBA is very interesting. It really incentivizes teams to not be in the luxury to take less salary, because the less salary you have, the more wiggle room you'll have to actually trade players. Because the way players will be traded in 2 seasons from now is going to be a lot different. Like you're going to have to match player dollar for dollar in a couple of seasons, and right now we won't be able to. We can do whatever we want. So teams are going to want less money. So I can and shout out to Ian who wrote this. He said a deal with a package of Evan Fournier, topping in Isaiah Hartenstein, and draft compensation could work. Now, would they want that package is different. They might ask for Grimes, and they might ask for IQ for sure. No, not Mag. They will ask for Grimes, or they will ask for IQ in that scenario, if that's what we're giving up for sure. So yeah, just to keep that in mind. But I do agree with you guys. The usage rate between those four guys might be a lot to manipulate.
Yep.
All right. And shout out to Zach Lavine and the offensive rating. Here's the other thing too about Zach Lavine. I know we want to move away from the isolation offense, but this 83rd percentile isolation offense is pretty good. All right, we need we need guys who can create their own shots out of nothing. Pull up threes is something he can do. Create his own shot is something he can do. Sometimes he gets a little happy where he's doing it a little bit too much. Sometimes that's kind of what happens when you're really good at scoring at 3 levels. You kind of your shot selection suffers when you're good at that stuff, and you have to kind of tune that in. But he's good. He's a baller, man. He's a baller, and I think he would definitely make us better for sure.
That's a pretty defensive rating too. 111.7. That's nothing to ignore. That's a pretty solid rating for someone who would probably be our 3rd or 4th best defender.
Yeah, and if we keep Grimes in that lineup, I think would be solid. I definitely think would be solid. And to be honest, I was looking at the isolation defensive ratings from RJ to Zach Lavine. RJ's isolation defensive rating is staggeringly bad, worse than I thought looking at numbers. I'm going off of memory right now. I'm gonna pull it up. I believe it's the 7th percentile, which is
wow.
Yikes.
Yeah. On isolation.
No wonder Jimmy Butler was hunting them on switches. You're gonna cook them. He's like barbecue chicken, baby.
Yeah.
Canadian chicken.
Isolation defense, 7.6 percentile. I'm good for Zach Lavine. Now, here's the thing: if we end up with RJ Barrett, I still feel like there is a world RJ Barrett can get better. He's on a longer timeline than anybody else. He's younger, but I was impressed by the steps he took in the playoffs. So I do believe there is a world if we do not trade for Zach, that RJ takes another step next summer. But if we do end up with Zach Lavine, I wouldn't be mad at it though. Because at the end of the day, we do need shooting, and I love RJ. But when I envision RJ's final form, I envision him being that guy who can bully people in the paint, and not necessarily a guy who's going to be able to pull up threes and shoot threes. So even in his final form, the fit with a guy like Jalen Brunson who likes to be inside, it still to me leans more towards Zach Lavine.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts? Anything else you want to say about Zach Lavine becoming a Knick, possibly?
I know Leon Rose went after him at the deadline, and I would fully expect him to go after him again. You can tell that Leon is active in star chasing now that he's in his 3rd season with the Knicks. Going after Donovan Mitchell last summer and failing. Well, not failing, but decide not to acquiesce to Danny Ainge's ridiculous requests. And then going after Zach Lavine at the deadline. I think he wants to add another star after seeing how good Jalen Brunson is and knowing the assets that we have moving forward. It made sense for us to do a little bit more of a win now mentality than we have when he first took over. So I really hope this happens. I like Zach Lavine as a person and a player. I think he would be really excited to come to a team that is in the playoffs consistently and now going to the second round. The Chicago has been ass for the last couple of seasons. Before that, Minnesota. So, he's been on really bad squads his whole career. This would absolutely be the best team he's ever been on and the best point guard he's ever played with.
Yeah. Chicago has been butt cheeks for a while. I'm not going to
They
had that one year when my ball brother was healthy. I think that was the biggest. I think that's the biggest thing. I feel like them missing that point guard really set them back. And us having Jalen Brunson here would do wonders for Zach Lavine. I think that's a huge reason because like when DeMar and Lavine and Ball were together, they were a very formidable squad. Like they were like weren't they like a top 4, top 5 team when they all three together? So I think a lot of their lack of success last season had to do with Ball going down.
Yeah,
to be honest with you. And so I think with us having our own three-headed monster here, I think it will suit Zach well to join the squad, join Death Row, man. Come over here.
Yeah, and Lavine showed that he can play very well with someone who dominates in the mid-range. DeRozan and Randall have very similar sweet spots. So I think they would coexist pretty well together because of Levine's ability to stretch the floor.
Exactly. I
Yep.
agree. I agree. And maybe he can give both Randall the ball and pick and roll. Something. And have Randall break less. But let's do that next season, please.
Let's do that.
Facts.
Anything to add to that, Ryan?
Not really. Like I said, Zach Lavine, if the Knicks were to trade for him, I'd be on board 100%.
All right. Well, that's the show. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. There will be more content coming. Thank you guys for watching. And stay tuned for more videos. That is our show. We out of here. Peace.
Peace.
New York, big city of dreams. New York, big city of dreams.